Alrighty, folks. Hello and welcome to my channel. This is a final project for my history class. But I might make it a public video. It depends on how I feel about the final project. I'm also doing a separate audio recording. If I swap the audios at time, it's because the audio was either better through the camera or through the mic, and I need to be able to be heard this whole time. And if you're hearing just the audio recording, it means I got too lazy to edit the whole video because I am filming this 1 p.m. the day it is due. So if you're just hearing the audio recording, hello, Professor. This was the same style you did your class with the podcasts. But if you're seeing the video as well, it's not particularly too important, but I'm going to do my best to try and have visuals up here. And I'm already seeing that I have a problem because I wrote too high. I didn't think about that. So my temporary fix will be to move the camera backwards, but my long-term fix will be when I'm adding stuff to the whiteboard. Or my blackboard. Yeah, that's right, I got a chalkboard. That's how you know I'm a physics major. I'm a real nerd. Yeah, so for this class, we were tasked with studying a topic throughout the decade of the 1900s, and I'm going to be so for real, I was lost during the duration of this whole class. It was way more pain than it was worth. And as you know, I love Sergei Rachmaninoff. I would have studied him specifically, but the limitations of this project were such that I had to study a topic throughout the 1900s. So my workaround to that is my topic is artists and composers, or I guess specifically composers through the 1900s. So yeah, we're talking about artists, composers in the Soviet Union. We're going to touch on censorship in the Soviet Union as well. And that's all just an excuse so that I can include Sergei Rachmaninoff in my project. All right, hello and welcome to my class. I wanted to start this video by giving you a rundown on the people we're going to be talking about today. So let's go ahead and start with, obviously and most importantly, Sergei Rachmaninoff, written in blue because blue is my favorite color and he's my favorite person. He was born in 1873. We're not sure of the exact day, but he was born in Staraya Russa, Russia. If I mispronounce words, by the way, I'm sorry, I don't speak Russian. Some of his famous works include the Piano Concerto No. 2, Morceau de Fantage, and my personal favorite, Prelude in C-sharp minor. We're going to talk a little bit about him, but he flees Russia in 1917 due to his he's already being concerned about like the things that are going on. So he's a pretty emotionally in tune guy, okay? He's like, he knows what's up. And there is a whole video on him if you are interested in that and you're not my professor, so I mean, I guess my professor could watch that too if she really wanted to. Alright, and then we have Nikolai Myaskovsky, born April 20th, 1881. He's known as the father of the Soviet symphony, and he won the Stalin Prize 5 times, by the way, which is kind of crazy. Some of his famous works include Symphony No. 6, Symphony No. 21 in F-sharp minor, and Symphony No. 16. And then moving on to Sergei Prokofiev. Prokofiev? Again, not the best at this. He was born April 23rd, 1893 in what is now Ukraine. This man was like a freaking superstar for a bit. It's not up here, and I don't know why. I know why, because I replaced it with this, but he actually rewrote the Romeo and Juliet ballet. So if you've seen that, and I'm sure you've heard the Romeo and Juliet love overture, I'll go ahead and insert a clip of it here. But this specific part that I'm gonna play for you, often used in like cartoons or something to signify romance. Something. It's in the SpongeBob episode when they're doing the snail racing and he sees the girl snail and it's like ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. Also, sorry if my voice sounds a little bit weird. I am sick. I've been sick ever since I've returned from my trip. So hopefully that gets better. He died the same day as Stalin, so no one cared. I mean, I'm joking. Obviously someone cared, but you're gonna see that we actually hate him. So we don't care when he dies. We hate him. He's evil. He's a monster. We don't like this guy, okay? We are not. Alright, lastly, we're gonna talk about Dmitri Shostakovich. We're like almost birthday twins. He was born September 26, 1906, in St. Petersburg. You can tell I'm dyslexic because I cannot write in a straight line, guys. Sorry. He experienced early fame in the Soviet Union, but as we will come to see, the opinions just changed. They switched up on him real quick. They was two-faced when it came to this man, and it kind of sucked. I'm like, dang, I would feel so sad if I was him. So some of his famous works include Symphony No. 5 in D minor. I know, these men are really creative with their names, and they're loving this minor key, which is something I might touch on later. It depends on how long this video is going to be, because I have to edit this all today. So L is Waltz No. 2, and my personal favorite, String Quartet No. 8. I love his string quartets. His string quartets go crazy. I first heard a Shostakovich string quartet. I was like, I have to play that. I have to play that. So yeah, Dmitri Shostakovich, he's just him and Dvorak. Oh my goodness, their music's just so good. If I can, I'll have some music playing maybe throughout the background, or I'll insert some clips of each of their songs here, my favorites. I actually might just go through all of them and have like their favorite cycle in the background if possible. So now that you know the people that we're going to talk about, let's start at the very beginning. That's a very good place to start, right? We're starting with Sergei Rachmaninoff, and I'll give you a little bit of background. In the 1890s, he faced a little bit of brief success because he had released his Prelude in C sharp minor, highly acclaimed, everyone loved it. But after his Piano Concerto No. 1, he had a critique from this guy, Cesar Quay. I don't remember how you say it. It's in my other video, which is way better than this one. Saying that it would be enjoyed in hell. People did not like it at all. And there's a lot of reasons why. Some people say that the conductor was drunk while they were performing it. So, I don't know. I might not ever know. I wasn't there. But he then went on to burn like this music. It's been restored since. But he did go on to burn this piece. He was just really sad about the whole thing, and he was really depressed about it. But in 1901, he makes a comeback with Piano Concerto No. 2. That's right, he's back and better than ever. People loved it worldwide. This starts his career as like an international artist. He goes to England, and this is gonna be, him becoming more international is gonna be beneficial for him later on. And yeah, I mean, it really got him out of his depression, and it was a great time for him. For the other boys, we don't have much going on. We have Dmitri Shostakovich being born in 1906, like I said previously. And Nikolai and Prokofiev. I'm gonna say Nikolai's first name because his last name is really hard for me. But they meet. They become best friends. Nikolai's actually the oldest in his class at, I'll insert the name here because I forgot to write it in my script, but Prokofiev is the youngest. They meet, they become quick friends, and, you know, we kind of have beef with Nikolai too because he supports what Prokofiev goes to do later on. So, it is what it is. And we'll go ahead and move to the 1910s. Back to Nikolai. He serves as a general in World War I. Sorry, he serves as an officer in World War I and was unfortunately wounded in battle. We do know that his Symphony 4 and 5 he began working on while he was at war. So we know these two symphonies are most likely influenced by that experience. And he returned to Moscow after that revolution and becomes a citizen of the Soviet Union. So our Sergeys, they're not having it. They don't want to be part of the Soviet Union. So we'll start with Rachmaninoff. I know he's second on the board, but he left first. He flees in 1917, and I need to reiterate, he flees by sled. As a Californian, I deadass cannot conceptualize the actually using a sled as a form of transportation. I'm like, out where? To where? With the down the hill? Like, I mean, it doesn't make sense to me, but yes, a sled was a legitimate form of travel, especially in the winter months in places where it snows. So I'm just gonna have to accept that. And if you want to hear more about that, I have the video on it, like I said. And Prokofiev leaves in 1918. He seems to leave by normal me. I didn't really look into how he left. Listen, I looked into one thing. I got really focused on this one thing that's gonna happen in the 1940s, and that's why we hate him. So that's all I'm really gonna talk about when it comes to this guy. Yeah, he flees in 1918. He goes to the U.S. He goes to Paris. He goes all over, and he's kind of establishing himself as an international pianist and composer. Okay, so moving on to the 20s. Well, the 20s is big for our youngest composer, our baby boy Shostakovich. He premieres his first symphony at age 19. I wish I was half as successful as this man. I'm not even going to get a degree until I'm like 23. So, I mean, he's already coming into international success at this young age. And he, unlike every other composer, actually attended the Petrograd Conservatory of Music. Rachmaninoff attended the St. Petersburg Conservatory, but only for a limited amount of time. Then I believe he moved to the Moscow Conservatory. Nikolai and Prokofiev studied at the St. Petersburg Conservatory together. So with Rachmaninoff, we don't have a lot to say about him at this time because he's not really composing. He seems to have struggled with mental health for a very long time. His sister died at a very young age. And ever since then, he's never really been always on the up and up. He has good times, he has bad times. And, I guess that's understandable. But he's not composing a lot. It's because he's in his sad boy era. He's kind of sad that he had to leave his home, which, I mean, understandable. He's still performing because he needs to, but he just seems very emotionally exhausted. Okay, Mayakovsky. He's doing great, though. He does perform, but he's primarily, and he is also composing, but he is primarily, actually, a professor at the Moscow Conservatory, which is really big. He's a huge influence on the up-and-coming generation of Soviet composers, and that's why they call him the father of Soviet music. In fact, most of, the socially acceptable artists at this time studied under him. So that's why he's on this list and none of those younger artists. Also because I didn't like the younger artists' music as much. Okay, and now moving on to the 1930s. Well, the 1930s is significant for our youngest once again, but probably not in a good, well, no, for sure not in a good way. In 1934, he releases his opera, Macbeth, and it's a huge hit. People were loving it when it first released, but in 36, the article Pravda, which is the main newspaper at the time, someone at Pravda must have really hated this musical, so they write an article calling it muddle instead of music. And because nobody is capable of free think in this society, everyone's like, actually, you know what? Yeah, we do hate Shostakovich. And this poor boy, because I cannot imagine. I mean, at this time, he's in his... Hold on, let me do some quick math. Yeah, quick maths. Not that. He's in his late 20s, early 30s. And I feel so bad, because I feel like I just know this man was probably not seeing a therapist. And he starts living in constant fear of being arrested. He keeps a suitcase at his front door at all times, which, let's be for real, okay? I love you, Dimitri, I love you, but a suitcase at your front door is not gonna help you when they come in knocking at your front. You gonna run past them? With your whole suitcase? Anyway. Sorry, little bro, but it's not gonna work. In fact, he's so scared that he calls kills off his symphony number 4. He's like, they're not gonna like this one. Let me just rescind it. Let's not play it. We're not gonna do this. He writes a new symphony, Symphony number 5, and titles it, and he subtitles it "A Soviet Artist's Reply to Criticism," which is more compliant with what they wanted to hear from him at the time. But I also don't know if that's I don't know if he released that subtitle with it, because I know if I'm sitting at Pravda, I'm ready to write another article on this man. Like, oh, this is your response. I mean, they seem to have it out for him anyway. So, yeah. So, Rachmaninoff in the 30s, his music actually gets banned for being bourgeois and Western. I'd also like to reiterate right now that a majority of his pieces at the time were written in Russia. But they were still too bourgeois. They were still too Western. So, I don't know. And also, they were inspired by this guy. I don't know. You may have heard of him, Tchaikovsky. Don't know if you've heard of him, but I'm pretty sure he was Russian. His music is stated to lack ideological value and doesn't serve the workers' cause. And I can also think of a couple of other things and people who are not serving the workers' cause. Okay, and Prokofiev, he's actually on the up and up, okay? Although he had left the Soviet Union and spent his time traveling, he stayed in contact with a lot of people who were just pro-Soviet Union, and they were always Sergey, come home! Sergey, we miss you! Sergey, you gotta come here, you gotta compose, Sergey! And he's kind of like, at first he's not really about it. He's enjoying his life abroad, and maybe he should have stayed abroad. Okay, and we're gonna get into it because we're coming up on the 40s, and the 40s is a whole hate campaign on Prokofiev from me, okay? But anyway. In 1935, Prokofiev, of all people, and this really shocks me because he left the Soviet Union. So why did they commission him? But he's commissioned to redo the ballet Romeo and Juliet, previously from Tchaikovsky, right? And it's for the Kirov Theater in Leningrad, and it's kind of like this whole big thing, like, oh, you're gonna come home, we're gonna play this, it's gonna be fun. He takes the commission, he does it, it goes really well, they're loving him. And in 1936, he makes his move back home. He moves officially with his family to the Soviet Union. His wife, Lina, she's not really... Oh shoot, I forgot about him. In the 1920s, he marries Lina, a Spanish singer, in 1923, who we love. She's the real hero of this story. But in 1936, he moves back to the Soviet Union with his family. But they're loving him. They're giving him tons of commissions. He's always right. He's always performing. Everybody's loving him. They're like, Prokofiev, we love you. Thank you for coming home. Yay. Which I still find is crazy. You're telling me Dmitry Shostakovich, born and raised here, by the way, and his family's big supporters of the Soviet Union. And they're like, your music is a no. But this man who left, was told, no, yeah, we love you. Come home. We want you here. Why are we loving this guy but not this guy? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't love his music. I will in a second. But I'm saying that it's just kind of strange to me that the person who was born, raised, loves his homeland is being put down while this guy left. He was like, I'm out of here. And he didn't return for a very long time. What's that? 1836 minus 18. Almost 20 years. Almost 20 years he was gone. And now we're like, this guy, he's it. And he actually was like, I'm gonna be like Shostakovich's rival. Like, he was a real nemesis. He was a villain. I mean, he's not really a villain. He's just writing his music. And yeah, they're loving him. He writes some war sonatas for piano. And he works with a prominent director on a film with like this strong patriotic message. So things for him, they're looking good going into the 1940s. So now we're moving on to the 40s, and this is tragically the worst decade because we lose our absolute favorite. In 1941, Rachmaninoff produces his last major work, Symphonic Dances, which some people perceive as a tribute to Russia. He dies in 43, Rip Rachmaninoff, our favorite boy. Hope he's doing well. He's buried in New York alongside the rest of his family. Okay, so in early 1940s, Shostakovich probably thought things were gonna go well. He premieres the Leningrad Symphony during the Nazi siege, and it becomes used as a propaganda symbol for Soviet resilience. So it seems like things are on the up and up, but in 1948, all that's gonna change, and we'll talk about why. But first, we gotta hate on Prokofiev. So, you must remember, I told you that he married his wife, Lina, in 1923. And I need to, I'll put in the date, because I didn't write it in the script. I went on a whole separate deep dive about what we're going to talk about. I'll put in the date where this all starts. But in the early 40s, he composed the War and Peace song that we talked about. And you see, they were loving him, but there was one thing that they weren't loving about his wife, and that's that she was Spanish. And I guess he wasn't loving his wife either, because in 1942, he decides to move in with his side chick. That's right, he's got a side chick. I don't even have her name written down. What's her name? What is her name? Her name is his side chick. Let's be for real. I mean, she probably had something significant to do with something or the other. Like, this is weird. Like, he sent her a photo of himself signed. Like, I get that, like, maybe that's how we was flirting back in the day. But, like, if I get a photo of a man, I'm gonna be like, wait, no, I just thought about it. It's like, I guess it's like adjacent to nowadays how like your partner will send you a photo of, I'll be like, send me a photo of you, baby. I don't get that. I really don't get that. Like, so real talk though, his wife was kind of treated terribly by the Dacian. They even arrested her, and she was already not a fan of this move. I think I told you earlier, she did not want to move with him. And as I said, in 42, he moves in with his side chick, and that's why we like the other Sergei better, because he would never do that to his cousin. He would never cheat on her. We're going to talk about Lina a little bit more, because she's a bad... I'm not going to curse, because this is for my class. She's a cool gal. Let's call her that. So Sergei calls her up, and is like, I am leaving Moscow, and you and the kids need to come. And Lina, I guess it wasn't clocking to Sergei that Lina was standing on business. Because she was like, I'm not going. Like, you already moved me all the way out here. And then I was like, all right, look, I'm cool. You can have your affair, but you can't move in with her. And then you moved in with her? She's like, nah, I'm taking my chances. And she gets arrested. And she gets sent to a work camp. But she said, I'd rather be on these streets than with you. You trifling, good for nothing type of brother. As Destiny's Child would say. So then in 48, he gets married to his side chick. And I'm gonna cross-reference these dates because I don't know what happens first. I can't say this word. Zhanov decree or him marrying his side chick. I'll cross-reference. I'll put up which one happens first. Her name is Mira. And he's able to do this because the Soviet state doesn't even uphold or recognize his marriage to Lina since they didn't get married there. And it's not legit. But karma hits him immediately because guess who gets name dropped in this decree? That's right, Prokofiev. So that's what you get. Cheater, cheater, pumpkin eater, except for you're not eating pumpkins because you can't afford any. He also falls ill in the late 1940s, and you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. I wonder what his side chick had to say about it, too. Anyway, so let's talk about this Zhanov doctrine stuff, right? So on the best day of the year, 1947, delegates from the whole USSR came together to create the Common Form, which was an informational bureau. And this dude, Andrei Zhanov, essentially was like, there's two teams in this game, okay? There's the Americans, the imperialists, and the anti-democratic, and then there's us. There's us. It's us versus them. We're the only good ones. We have to save the world. We can't even save them. We just need to save ourselves. We need to protect ourselves from them. And I guess all the delegates sat there like, yeah. Let him speak. Let him speak. He's cooking. They all disagreed on it, and they came up with this stuff called Janov Doctrine, which is kind of like a control of like art and like art forms that are allowed and things like that. And I don't know if any of them is an artist. I'm gonna be for real with you. I don't think any of them were artists at all. But the Janov Decree is a separate event, okay? This happens during a conference of the Union of Soviet Composers. Andrei Janov himself gets up and he name drops all our boys. That's right, he says every single one of their names, except Rachmaninoff, because Rachmaninoff's dead. But he's like Prokofiev, Shostakovich, Mayakovsky. Y'all know I have some problem with that name. Nikolai. All of them. You're done. You're done for. Your music is formalist. It's anti-democratic. It's anti-Soviet. And it's like, oh, it's like that. It's like that, Andre. And it is like that. He really doesn't know anything about music. I'm looking for reasons why he's like, this music is anti-Soviet. Yeah, it was bourgeois formalism to him. But I'm trying to look and find a reason as to why he declared that, and it's because it's dissonant. They're making song, and not every single song that they make sounds like this, right? But they have experimentalist music, which really isn't all that experimentalist, because they've been using most of these chords since the Romantic era, since before Rachmaninoff, okay? And people, I mean, I think he's just smooth-brained. I think he cannot handle the concept of dissonance in his brain, and I'm gonna play you some dissonant chords here. I don't expect you to have a lot of musical knowledge, and I would love to give you a whole musical breakdown of some of these pieces, but I don't know if that would be beneficial to my project, and I don't want to waste my time like that. So, yeah, sorry. But he hears like these dissonant chords, and he's like, "This is not what we want. We want beautiful, perfect. We want beautiful fifths. We want thirds. We want fourths. Don't you ever play a seventh in his presence." So partially, it's kind of just like a power play on his part. It's just him, and he drops. These are the big names of the time. Shostakovich, Mayakovsky, and Prokofiev are like the guys, and he even drops one of Mayakovsky's students. He's like, none of that, and it's like, whoa. So it's really like that. All of the biggest artists in the Soviet Union at this time have just been declared formal. I think this was a power. I really think that this is just speculation on my part. I think this was a power trip. He was trying to see how much control do I really have over these people, and it turns out a lot, because not capable of free think or something. But then I can only imagine what I would have felt being Shostakovich or Prokofiev, because I bet Prokofiev was sitting there. He was like, I did Romeo and Juliet, I did this, I did that, and everyone loved these pieces. They thought they were good pieces, but suddenly someone speaks out again. They're like, these artists are bad, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, they suck, boo, tomato, tomato, tomato. And a lot of these artists, Shostakovich especially, he's the one I was able to confirm this on, had to like do like a public apology. He had to come out like, guys, I'm so sorry, I'm a formalist and I'm anti-Soviet, but like, it's not true that he didn't say that. He was probably like a lot more formal. He had to come out and give a public apology, and I again can only imagine what that did to his psyche. He was like, wait, I'm like, in 41 we were good, but 7 years later now we're having problems again. Like, what did I do? Okay, so now we're coming into the 1950s, and let's be for real, the big event is 1953 when Stalin died. And I kind of want to talk about how each of our boys responded to the death of Stalin. So Prokofiev was so distraught that he decided to die alongside him. And that is, unfortunately, the end of his story. Actually, you know what? Fortunately, that's what you get for cheating. He died at the age of 61, having a stroke. Nikolai's already dead. He died August 8th, 1950. He died of cancer. And as you know, we reached the end of the line with Rachmaninoff in the last decade. So the only one who had a real response to the death of Stalin is Shostakovich. The year Stalin died, he released Symphony Number 10, the second movement here, which is interpreted as a portrait of Stalin. And if I have time, I'll do a musical analysis on why people think that is. But the long and short of it is it's very aggressive. But the thing about that is it's common form in music like this for the second movement to be like fast, allegro, right? So I'm not sure. It's literally just speculation. One other thing that I want to mention about 1953 is that we see that Shostakovich does not subscribe to the anti-Semitic ideals that Stalin and his successors have perpetuated. This is probably part of the reason why they didn't like Shostakovich so much. This is just the earliest instance I was able to find, but I'm pretty sure he probably spent a lot of time being against their anti-Semitic ideals. But there are letters of him defending his friend Weinberg, who was a Jewish composer, and he sent these letters directly to Stalin and his security chief. Oh, and most importantly, after Stalin's death, they started slowly allowing Rachmaninoff's music back into Russia. So, yay, rip Stalin! And then there was one. We lost Rachmaninoff in early 1940s, and then Tchaikovsky and Prokofiev decided to up and die on us in the 50s. So we're left with just our youngest, as expected, Shostakovich. In 1960, I believe that, along with many other scholars, Shostakovich was essentially bullied into officially joining the Communist Party. I mean, look, the dude was like, at the time he was considered old. He likely thought that he wasn't going to escape and he wasn't going to be allowed to compose if he didn't join the Communist Party. And it's debated. It's debated if he really wanted to or not. A lot of people believe my position that I got from other people online, because at first I was like, well, maybe he actually did want to join the Communist Party. But after I found out all of that stuff, I was like, yeah, maybe he didn't. After being called out by Andre himself, and also that Pravda article, and also sleeping with his suitcase next to the door, his psyche was completely destroyed. Let's just be for real. Yeah, he joined the Communist Party. And in 1966, he was awarded the Order of Lenin, showing that they were finally accepting of him after they caused him so much terror, it seems. And we move on to the 70s, and we conclude this timeline with the death of our youngest composer. Dmitri Shostakovich died in 1975, just a month before his 69th birthday. He left us 15 symphonies and string quartets and countless other works, all in different genres. I don't know if it's okay to end my project in the 70s, but I didn't research anyone who was alive after that. I didn't think they would die so soon, but they did. So, yeah. But also, anyways, in the 80s, we see a shift away. Of course, we still have composers of this style of music, right? But we see a huge shift, and we start to see it, I think, around the 60s, 70s, in the type of music that people are listening to, not just in the Soviet Union, but worldwide. So, I think that it's kind of best that my timeline ends here, because I think all of my composers that I chose have a good connection and also display a lot of different, I guess, lifestyles. I don't really know what the word I'm looking for is, right? But they were all like some of the most famous composers at the time. And you can see all of their different responses, right? I mean, Rachmaninoff, of course, he's the oldest. So you see his response when he sees this shift in the political system is like, well, I'm gonna leave and I'm not gonna come back. But then with Prokofiev, we see him leave and return, and what that return means for him, right? And again, I want to reiterate the point where like they loved Prokofiev for some reason, but they were starting to hate on Shostakovich, even though he stayed there the whole time. And then Tchaikovsky, we didn't really have much on him, but I felt like it was necessary to include him here as the father of the Soviet symphony. Um, because he was also condemned in that speech by Andre. So, yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. A lot of different perspectives, I think. Find really anything super interesting about Nikolai. I'm sure if I dig a little bit harder, I will, but it's like, I mean, Rachmaninoff married his cousin. Prokofiev had an affair. Shostakovich was sleeping with a suitcase by the door. And then Nikolai was just like a guy. I mean, but again, I didn't dig too hard, so maybe one day I will. So I want to take a moment to point out that at least two of our composers discussed here today seem to be suffering from mental health issues that were in part caused by the censorship that they faced. Even artists who did their best to fit in and do what they thought was expected of them ended up being persecuted and publicly shamed for the art that they made. I mean, Prokofiev, who we hate for cheating, was literally begged to come back by people who were supporters of the Soviet Union and asked to write Romeo and Juliet, like one of the most famous ballets ever. And Janov still name dropped him. So maybe he's not a fan of the ending of Romeo and Juliet. Although, fun fact, while I was researching this, they actually changed the ending of Romeo and Juliet for the Prokofiev version until people were like, actually, we don't like that ending, go back. So they did go back. These people, for the most part, were just doing their best to fit in, and they were still persecuted by the government that some of them supported. Fast forward to present day, all of these artists are held in very high acclaim. I mean, I'm 21 in 2025 and I'm talking about them. So people know who these people are. In 2015, there was a request to have Rachmaninoff's remains sent back to Russia to be buried in Moscow, which his family denied because they wanted him to stay buried with the rest of his family. Which I'm glad about because that means I get the chance to visit Rachmaninoff's grave next time I'm in New York. I think that we can all recognize that the treatment of these artists was not justified. Except maybe for Prokofiev for cheating. Unfortunately, many artists in different countries are still facing censorship to this day. And I would love to say more about this, but this video is actually doing less than 5 hours. And now I have to edit all this stuff. So, yeah. I can only do so much. I would love to do a more in-depth video on the other artists as well. I already have one on Rachmaninoff. Maybe I'll get an updated video on that too. But yeah, maybe I'll feel motivated to do that soon because I've already proven to myself I can film and edit 2 videos in 2 days. Yeah, this has been a fun summer filled with 2 projects. Thanks so much for watching, and if you're my professor or my TA, please give me an A. I would like an A now. If you're not my professor or my TA, you should like and subscribe. Thank you again, and have a good day.